Welcome back, 5th grade. Again, I feel like I'm saying this every video, but I'm sorry I missed a couple days on our chapter book. We had gotten the order from the governor of Ohio, Mike DeWine, that schools are going to be closed until May 1st because of the coronavirus. So I spent the last couple days just getting ready to do that with you guys. I had to plan the lessons and print your work, and you're going to be getting it in a couple days. I'm going to be recording some lessons tomorrow, actually. That way you can see them online. And Mrs. Flesser and Miss Hughes are going to send out information to your parents on how to access them. But I was thinking about it because this is new and scary and different for all of us. But I think it's a really cool opportunity, not just for you guys to learn something new, but for me too. I've never taught distance learning before, so there's a big learning curve, but that's okay because it's a challenge and it's going to grow my brain and expand my ability to teach. So I'm looking at this as a advantage. And when you guys go to college, it's actually going to be really helpful for you too. When I went to school, we had to do a lot of stuff and we were responsible for our own learning. You know, our professors didn't check in and make sure we had our homework done. Our professors didn't make sure we were reading the textbooks. But if we didn't do that, we wouldn't pass the class. So you guys are just going to be learning some responsibility right now that Miss Benson and I can't be there to do for you, to double check your planner and things like that. We're giving you all the tools you need, so you'll totally be able to do it. But it's a really good opportunity for you to get ready for middle school, high school, college. So that's what I was looking at. I also spent yesterday setting up my home office. Mr. Boskeljohn and I live in a little house, and we do have an office. But Mr. Boskeljohn is in school right now, so he's doing distance learning as well. So he has to take all of his classes online, and he's doing that in our office, so I couldn't use that too. Just because he'll be studying movement and how your body works, and he's doing anatomy and physiology right now. Really crazy classes. So I didn't want to distract him, and I didn't want to get distracted. So I set up a little home office. I'm going to show you guys. Do you want to see it? Oh. All right, hold on. So Mrs. Boskeljohn's still learning how to use her camera correctly. Anyway, there it is. Little home office set up in my living room. I have a little desk. You can see some of our textbooks right there. I have my Bible in that box. I have a devotional, my pens and pencils. So I'm getting ready, and you guys got a little tour of my living room with that. There you go. Ready? Living room tour. You guys will, I'm sure, be seeing more of my house as I'm doing different videos in different places. But since I've already talked your ear off for 3 minutes, let's go ahead and get into our book. Woo. All right. So, what chapter are we on? Chapter 9, I think. Let's see. So, of our book, My Side of the Mountain, in which I learned to season my food. Ugh, I love seasoned food. If the food is bland, I don't like to eat it. All right. So, in which I learned to season my food. So it says, the fire warden made a fire sometime in the colder hours of the night. At dawn, he was asleep beside the white smoldering ashes. I crawled back into the gorge, fed frightful some rabbit bites, and slipped into the edge of the meadow to check a box trap that I had set the day before. I made it by tying together some small sticks, like a log cabin. This trap was better than the snares of the Dreadfalls. It had caught numerous rabbits, several squirrels, and even a groundhog. I saw it, I inched toward it, and it was closed. The thought of a closed trap excites me even to this day. I can't believe that animals don't understand why delicious food is in such a ridiculous spot. Well, this morning I pulled the trap deep into the woods to open it. The trapped animal was light, but I couldn't guess what it was. It was also very active, flipping and darting from one corner to the next. I peeked in to locate it so I could grab it quickly behind the head without getting bitten. I'm not always so successful at that, and I have the scars on my hands to prove it. I put my eye to the crack. A rumpus arose in the darkness. 2 bright eyes shone, and out from the hole, no wider than a string bean, came a weasel. He flew right at me, landed on my shoulder, and gave me a lecture that I shall never forget. Then it vanished under the trillium and bloodroot leaves. He popped up about 5 feet away and stood on his hind feet again to lecture me. Scat, I said. So he darted right to my knee and put his furry paws on my pants and looked at me in the face. I never shall forget the fear and wonder I had at the bravery of that weasel. He stood on the ground, berating me. I could see the flash of his eyes and the curl of his lip. He was furious at me for trapping him. He couldn't talk, but I knew what he meant. Wonder filled me as I realized he was absolutely unafraid. No other animal that I quite knew by now, and I knew quite a few by now, had been so brave in my presence. Screaming, he jumped at me. This surprised and scared me. He leapt from my lap to my head, took a mouthful of my hair, and wrestled it. My goosebumps arose. I was too frightened to move. It was a good thing, too, because I guess he figured I wasn't going to put up a fight, and his scream of anger changed it to a purr of peace. Still, I couldn't move. Presently, down he climbed, stately as royalty, and off he marched, never looking back. He sank beneath the leaves like a fish beneath the water. Not a stem rippled away to mark his way. And so the Baron and I met for the first time, and this was the beginning of a harassing but wonderful friendship. Frightful had been watching all of this. She was tense with fright. Although young and inexperienced, she knew an enemy when she saw one. I picked her up and whispered into her birdie-smelling neck feathers. You wild ones know. Now, since I couldn't go home, I decided I would spend the day in the marsh to the west side of the mountain. There were a lot of cattails and frogs there. Frightful balanced on my fist as we walked. She had learned in a short span of time. She was a very bright bird. On our way, we scared a deer. It was a doe. I watched her dart away gracefully and said to Frightful, That's what I want. I need a door for my house, tethers for you, and a blanket for me. But how am I going to get a deer? This was not the first time I had said this. The forest was full of deer. And I had already drawn plans up on a piece of birch for some pit traps and snares, but none seemed workable. The day passed. In the early evening, we stole home tree by tree to find that the warden had gone. I cleaned up my front yard, scattered needles over the bare spots, and started a small fire with very dry wood that wouldn't smoke much. No more wardens for me. I liked my tree. Although I could live somewhere else, I certainly did not want to. Once home, I immediately started working again. I had a device I wanted to try, so I put some hickory sticks in a tin can and started boiling it while I fixed dinner. Before going to bed, I attached this note to the piece of birch bark. This night I am making salt. I know that people in the early days got along without it, but I think some of these wild foods would taste better with some flavoring. Now I understand that hickory sticks, when boiled dry, leave a salty residue, so I'm trying it. In the morning I added, It's quite true. The can is dry and thick with a black substance. It's very salty. I tried it on frog legs for breakfast, and just what I needed. So I went on to salt production for several days, and chipped out a niche in the side of the tree in which to store it. June 19th. Well, I finished my bed today. The ash slats work very well. They're quite springy and comfortable. The bed fits just in the right-hand side of the tree, and I have lock boughs in it now, and hope to have a deer hide soon. I'm making a 4-figure trap, as tall as me, with a log on it so I can fit. It doesn't look very workable. I wish there was another way of getting a deer. June 20th. I decided to dig out a pit to trap a deer. I'm going to whittle a shovel out of a board I found in the stream this morning. The stream is very useful. It has given me tin cans for pots and now an oaken board for a shovel. Frightful will hop from the stump to my fist. She still can't fly. Her wing feathers are about an inch long, but I think she likes me. All right, and I'm going to keep reading too. So the next chapter is How a Door Came to Me. So How a Door Came to Me. I think chapter 10. One morning, before the wood pews were up, I was smoking a mess of fish I had caught in a stream. When I caught more than I could eat, I would bone them and put them on a rack of sticks and slowly smoke them until they had dried out. This is the best way to preserve food. However, if you try it, remember to use hardwood. Hickory's the best. I tried pine in the first batch, and it ruined with black tarry smoke. Well, it was very silent. Then a scream. Presently I got up enough nerve to look out. Baron Weasel, I said in astonishment. It was the same weasel I had met in the trap. He was on the boulder in the front of the hemlock, batting with ferns with his front feet, rearing up and stared at me. Now you stay right there, I said. Of course, he flipped off and came off the rock like a jet stream. He was at the door before I could stop him, jumping around and bouncing at my feet like a ball. He looked glad over there, Baron. I hope that frisking means joy. He took my pant legs in his teeth and tugged at it, then rippled softly back to the boulder. He went down a small hole. He popped up again, bit a fern nearby, and ran around a boulder. I crept down to look for him. No weasel. I poked a stick in a hole at the base of the rock, trying to provoke him. I felt a little jumpy, so when that shot rang out in the woods, I leapt a foot in the air and dove into my hole. A cricket chirped. A catbird scratched the leaves. I waited. One enormous minute later, a dark form ran into the meadow. It stumbled and fell. I had an impression that it was a deer. Without waiting to consider what it might be, I burst into the edge of the meadow. No one was in sight, and I ran into the grass. There lay a dead deer. With all my strength, I dragged the heavy animal into the woods. I then hurried to my tree, gathering up the hemlock boughs I had on my bed, and rushed in and threw them over the carcass. I stuck a few ferns in them so it looked like they were growing there, and ran back to camp breathless. Hurried, I put out the fire, covered it with dirt, and hid my smoking rack. Macy. Shh. So my dog's also listening to the story. So if you'd like to see, I don't know if you can see her. There she is, barking for no reason. Macy, be quiet. I need to finish my story. Sorry, guys. She likes, since it's nice out, Macy likes to bark at the people who are walking by. You'll probably hear some more of her. I'm really sorry. But there she is. She quieted down. Macy. Macy, say hi. Say hi to the 5th graders. Apparently she doesn't want to say hi to you guys. I'm sorry. Okay, where were we? He had just covered the deer. He put out the fire and covered with dirt. He hid the smoking rack in the spring and grabbed Frightful and got in my tree. Someone was poaching. He would be... Do you know what poaching is? You guys need to remind me. If you don't know what a word means, make sure you comment below, and I'll help you figure it out. Poaching is hunting illegally. So in New York and most of the country, like in Ohio as well, you can hunt legally, but you need a license, which means that like the state knows that you're going to go hunting and you pay for a license, and then you can go and hunt deer. Unfortunately, what poachers do is they just do it illegally. They just go and they hunt and they don't tell anybody. And it's important for the government to know who's hunting. That way they know how many deer are killed. That way they can keep track of the populations to make sure there's still enough deer out there. Because remember we learned about what happens if there's none of one type of animal in an ecosystem? The ecosystem gets off whack, right? So then there'll be way too many plants that the deer aren't eating. And then there's not enough food for like the top tier carnivores, those predators, to eat, and then they die out. So it's really important for people to keep track of how many animals are being hunted so that the ecosystem stay healthy. But anyway, that's poaching. Let's get back to our story. He might be along any minute to collect his prize. The shot came from this side of the mountain, so I figured I had about 4 minutes to clean up before the poacher arrived. Then I was hidden and ready. Frightful started her cry of hunger. I hadn't fed her yet that morning. How was I going to explain to her the need to be quiet? How did a mother falcon warn her young of danger? I took my hands over her head and stroked her stomach. She fought me, then laid still in my hand, her feet up, her eyes bright. She stiffened and then drooped. I kept stroking her. She was hypnotized. I would stop for a few moments, then she would lie still, then pop to her feet. I wasn't sure this is what a mother bird would do to keep her quiet, but it worked. Bushes cracked, leaves scuttled, and a man with a rifle came into the meadow. I could see his head and shoulders. He walked around, banging up the hemlock forest. I crawled on my bed and stroked a hungry Frightful. I heard him come to the tree. I could see his boots. He stopped by the ash of the fire, then went on. I could feel my heart through my sweater. I was terrified. I stayed in the bed all morning, telling a fierce little bundle of feathers in my hand that there was deer meat in store for her if she could just wait. Way down the other side of the mountain, I heard another shot. I sure hoped that this deer dropped on the poacher's toes and he would go home. At noon, I went to get my prize. Frightful sat beside me as I skinned and quartered it. She ate deer until she was stuffed. I couldn't hear any notes as to how long it took me to do all the work that was required to get the deer ready for smoking and the hide scraped and ready for tanning. But it was many, many, many days. However, when I sat down to eat a venison steak, that was a meal. It was venison. I wrote this on a piece of birch bark. I think I grew up on venison. Macy. Shh. I'm so sorry, guys. Macy doesn't like the mailman, and the mailman just delivered our mail. I'm so sorry. However, when I sat down to a venison steak, that was such a meal. All it was venison. I wrote this on a piece of birch bark. I think I grew an inch on venison. Frightful and I went down the meadow, and when the meal was done, I plopped down on the grass. The stars came up, and the ground smelled sweet, and I closed my eyes. Then I heard a pip, 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 pip. "Who's making that noise?" I said to Frightful. She ruffled her feathers. I listened. Pip, pop. I rolled over and stuck my face in the grass. Something gleamed at me. In the fading light, I could see an earthworm coming out of its hole. Nearby, another one arose. There was a little bubbles of air popped, so these voiceless animals of the earth came to the surface. That got me smiling. I was glad to know about the earthworms. I didn't know why, but for some reason it felt like one of the nicest things I learned in the woods. That earthworms, lowly and confined to the darkness of the world, would make just a little stir. Alright, and that's the end of the chapter of My Side of the Mountain by Jean Craighead George. Again, guys, I'm so sorry for all the disruptions of the video. I'll get better at it, I promise. So, I'm still learning and practicing. Just like you guys are learning, I'm doing distance learning now. Alright, I will hopefully have a video for you tomorrow, but my plan is to record all of your lessons tomorrow so that they're ready to be uploaded so you can see them next week. So please forgive me if I don't get a chapter uploaded tomorrow. Alright, have a wonderful day, and I will see you digitally very soon.